the Talmudic period was, like it or not, an attempt to develop things further. This was the period of no one dared go beyond the limits, and Islam is like that, and I think Christianity was like that probably in the medieval period. This was the period of this is what Islam is still suffering from today. And, they're having a terrible time dealing with it, and now if you try to change it, you can get your head cut off. So, you know, there's intimidation and brutality mixed together. This was the period of rigid legalism, casuistry, the era which was devoted to the summing up of what had been handed down. The fourth period is, of course, our own time. Our own time is always the best time, isn't it? Why is it always the best time? Because we live in it, that's why. This is the age of enlightenment. We're all living in the best time, the enlightenment time. Well, you know, wish it were true, but maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. Has been marked by an effort to loosen the fetters of the previous eras by means of the use of reason in historical research. However, the bond with the past has not been severed. What basically we're attempting to do is to revitalize Judaism, cause the stream of history to flow forth once again. This is the area of critical study in our modern era. I don't think that's a bad program, frankly, what he announces there. The only question is what he considers to be, the new direction of things. And then here in 74, he evaluates the Talmud, the bottom of 74, the Jerusalem Gemara, the second part, that is, the Gemara means completion. You have the Mishnah, which is the oral traditions that were put down in the 2nd century, and then the Gemara is what was the finished discussions of these things. It's bare, meager, sober, and has a lot of legend and superstition in it. The Talmud, as he goes on to say further down on 75, I'm skipping here, is not by any means identical with the science of Judaism, nor does it contain that science, even basically or specifically. But the Talmud has to be examined in the light of critical study. For we're dealing with reports which in part have adopted foreign components. I suppose he'd say the same about Christianity. This is an extensive task of critical study, but it is rewarding. So we're into the area where he wants scholarship to develop. We want to learn about the Pharisees, the Sadducees, contrast the two, and so on and so forth. Okay, I think we get that. That's the program of the Wissenschaft of Judaism. Let's go back to the introductions to these prayer books. That we have back on page 51. And I think this gives us a good, you understand a little bit of the science of Judaism school, how it expresses itself. Here on 51 is the Association of Reformed Judaism. The proclamation of the association. This is really getting into serious organizational aspects. I don't know what the date of this is. Does he give it a date? I can't see a date. Well, let's assume it's somewhere in the 1810s, 18 teens or something like that, after the Ceasency. I guess it is associated with Jacobson. Our interfaith, the religion of our hearts, page 51, is no longer in harmony with the external forms of Judaism. Well, that's a fair statement. Probably even today, a lot of Jews, if I asked my own children, they would say that to me. We want a positive religion, meaning they meant by positive, rational, reasonable religion, logical positivism. They didn't mean positive or negative. They didn't mean it like that. We want Judaism. That is a theory of Judaism. We hold fast to the spirit of Holy Writ, and which we acknowledge as a witness of divine revelation. We hold fast to the idea that Judaism's teaching of God is an eternal truth. We hold fast to the promise this teaching will someday become the possession of all mankind. There's the mission to all mankind, which I think is really a little bit, pretentious and over-optimistic. I don't think we're going to teach the Muslims or the Buddhist world or any other universe the spirit of Judaism. That would be ludicrous And why should anyone want to? We can no longer pray honestly for the Messianic kingdom on earth, which will bring us back to the homeland of our forefathers. There it is, there it is, there it is. There's tossing out the national characteristics of Judaism. We just want it to be a religion. We don't want it to be a people, and therefore we can't think of returning anywhere. That would bring us back to the homeland of our fathers. This is the anti-Zionism. Pretending that we would return to, see, the prayer for the return to Zion is where Zionism gets its name from. And that is the prayer for the return to the homeland. I told you what Zion was. Do you recall what Zion was? I told you at one point. Zion is the seat of the Davidic monarchy in Jerusalem. Mount Zion is where the Davidic family was considered to reside in Jerusalem. It's a small hill next to the center area of Jerusalem. Maybe it's about 500 meters from the Temple Mount. There's a monastery on it today. But there's also a tomb there, considered to be King David's tomb. So we can't pray for the Messianic kingdom. Christian brothers may pray for that, but we can't do it anymore. Pretending that we should one day return from a strange land, the very fatherland to which we are tied with bonds of love. We can no longer recognize as a code an unchangeable law book, the Mosaic law that is, which maintains with unbending insistence that Judaism's task is expressed by forms which originated at a time which is forever past and which will never return. Well, you know, those are modern views. Those are the spirit of that time that they lived in. It's very modern. And actually, on the face of it, that idea that to live by a 3rd millennium, 2nd millennium BC system of laws is ridiculous in the nuclear age. I think we see it even more and more ridiculous today than then, that we should be bound by that. There's no reason not to pay some homage to it, but that we should be bound by that is really sort of to move into a kind of what are those people in southern Pennsylvania where that terrible shooting just happened? An Amish situation, yeah. I mean, it's all very admirable what they do, but you know, most people can't remain frozen in time. I mean, we can try if we want to.